After 20 years in marketing, I realized something wild. I've been trusting data more than my own instincts, and it's been killing my creativity. Welcome to day 2 of my self trust series, where I, a paid public speaker who's spoken at over 100 companies, corporations, and conferences, have decided that I'm going to go with no script, no slides, and talk to you as I build my own self trust muscle. My belief is by the end of the 30 days, I will not only have a real experience of what it's like to be in the audience or be one of the clients that I work with one on one who struggle with visibility on their way to recognition. So, today I want to talk about this idea of trusting data before we trust ourselves. I want to break it down into some ways that I can understand, and hopefully you can do the same. Now, full disclosure, I'm a sports fan, and you don't have to be a sports fan to follow me on this, but I want to talk about it in a term that might make a little bit more sense. If you've ever watched American football, the NFL, there's oftentimes and almost weekly, there's a debate on when you should go for it on fourth down versus when you shouldn't. And there's this school of listening to analytics and what does the data say, meaning what is the statistical likelihood that this play is going to work out versus the gut instinct, the years of watching games, the gut instinct that says, I think this defense might be vulnerable. I think we could actually get it if only we decided to go for it here. And there's been this push pull in recent years of when to rely on analytics and when to rely on yourself. Now, I notice that this is true not just in sports, but it's also been true for myself. I have often defaulted to my marketing background. I've defaulted to books that I've read or podcasts that I've listened to or mentors that are in the position that I eventually want to be in. And instead, I've now listened to myself. What I'm here to say is every single time there's a voice inside of you, there's an instinct telling you to go in one direction, but you listen to someone else, that's a betrayal of your self-trust. You are signaling to yourself that you can't be trusted, that someone else knows better than you. There will be times and instances where, yes, someone will have more experience, where that book or that video or that podcast is actually steering you in the right direction. In those instances, I want you to follow that. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about when there's times that it's that gut feeling, that same gut feeling that tells you not to go down a dark alley, that same gut feeling that says, I'm going to take this other way home. I believe that our body is giving us indications of that all the time. But are we choosing to listen to them? I've always admired the people who can leap and believe that the net will appear. I'm risk averse. I am not someone who is of the mind that when you leap, the net appears. I don't buy into that. Although I can see how it's worked out for other people. For me, I want to have some level of safety. And when we think of self-trust and this concept that I'm trying to break for myself, I'm trying to push through and establish that I can trust myself to make the right decisions, that my lived experience, my intelligence, my expertise, my skill set are enough to get me to where I want to go. I also have to be really honest. I have not continued with ideas that I've wanted to pursue. I have decided to listen to someone else instead of making certain choices in my business. I have paused and told myself this is not the right time for an idea when really I've been scared. I haven't been sure what the outcome is going to be. And because I want certainty in the outcome, I push it to the side because the data is telling me do one thing first. Because the data is telling me people know you this way, don't start something else. It's in those things that I truly believe that we betray ourselves. What I want you to explore today is why you don't trust yourself. Why listening to that instinct feels difficult. If I want to unpack it for myself, growing up as a first and only, I'm a first-gen Latina who grew up in New York City. There was a lot of conversation about what would happen if. And oftentimes, what came after that if wasn't the good things that were going to happen. It wasn't, yes, you'd surprise and delight yourself, and there would be beautiful rainbows at the end of the decision you would make. Instead, what we were taught was that there was danger, there was risk, there was money that could be lost, or time that could be lost, or something about it, embarrassment for the family. It was always wrapped in this idea of fear. And when you make your decisions from this place, from this mindset of what could go wrong, then what is happening inside of you is that you are suppressing what you already know. You are forcing down the self-trust that already exists within you, and you are defaulting to everything else. Everything is looked at through the lens of, is this safe? Can I afford to do this? What is the certainty or likelihood that this outcome is going to be one that I want? But if we don't do that for ourselves, if you don't decide to have this mindset of what if I tried? What if I tried even though statistically it doesn't look like what it should be? What would that be like? As I talk to you right now, I find it quite ironic that I'm someone who relies on data as heavily as I do, when I myself am a statistic that people would not normally bet on. I've been on my own since I was 16 years old. I've raised myself, put myself through college, figured out my first job and my second job, was able to get promotions, and eventually have a beautifully successful career, now a business, and a home for myself. But if you look at the statistics, if people were looking at me on paper, would they have ever bet on me? Would they have thought she's going to come out just fine? I would venture to guess that they wouldn't. Because on paper, when you look at the data, I wouldn't have appeared to be a safe bet. So knowing this about myself, knowing that I'm an outlier, isn't it fascinating to think how I still don't have the level of self-trust that I need? That even still, I want to default to data, to books, to podcasts, to videos, to mentors, to peers, when the voice inside is saying, but I think this is the right thing you should do. Let's talk about what this looks like in our careers. Whether you're a 9-to-5er or you're a business owner, there are still ways this idea for looking for data, wanting to collect more information versus listening to our gut shows up all the time. The way this presented itself to me most recently is I knew many, many years ago when I was starting to build an identity that was separate than my corporate identity, that the number one thing that I was going to be able to do, other than learning a new skill set, which at the time for me was podcasting, I was also going to need to learn how to develop the identity of showing up as someone else. I needed to figure out if people had only seen me as Monica, a corporate professional, a marketer, how was I going to get people to see me in this other way? I needed to build a personal brand. Nowadays, you hear personal brand popping up everywhere. But back then, this is what I was cultivating for myself. It was this new identity, a reinvention, if you will. Years ago, I was at this conference, and we had to do these round robins where we would go around to different tables explaining to people what it is that we did. I spoke to someone and introduced myself specifically about helping other people craft their own personal brand so that they could either use that in their business or be able to advance their careers. Now, some of the people at the table were in marketing, some people were in public relations. And when I said this, I remember they turned their heads and they said, well, what do you mean? Is that colors and fonts and a website? I thought to myself, I feel like I was clear about personal brand, but I tried to explain it again. And no matter what, each person said, I don't understand what that means. That same person that I had been speaking to at the table later on was a panelist at that conference. And wouldn't you know, she got up on that stage and I heard her say, personal brand. You mean personal brand, the same thing that I had just talked to you about that you alleged to not know? I'd like to say that that just added fuel to the fire, that I went more deeply into personal brand. But what's funny is that even though I had spoken about this on stages, even though people had hired me to help develop their personal brand, both one on one and in company settings, there were still people telling me, personal brand, yeah, nobody really wants that. And I'm ashamed to say that I listened. I listened to that advice, knowing that a personal brand is the exact thing that was able to move me from my corporate setting to having a business where people knew me in a completely different way. This is what I mean. When you betray what you know inside yourself because someone else is telling you something, someone else was trying to tell me about me, and I believe them. I believe them. It's no longer a them problem when I then decide to make a decision knowing that my gut, that my internal instincts are telling me something completely different. So why? Why didn't I trust myself? The reason is simple. I thought they knew better than I did. The people that I was speaking to, the mentors that I had invested in that were making more than I was in my business at the time, I said, I guess they know what they're talking about. In that decision, I avoided my own experience. I discounted all of that for someone else who had not done the same thing, for someone else who had not built the type of career and business that I had. I didn't trust myself. And later on, when I see those same people having conversations about building your personal brand, I can feel it. There's this pang that is upset that I didn't listen. But it's not upset at them. It's not directed at them. That feeling that I have is directed at myself. Because the only person that I can actually point the finger to is me for not listening. I'm happy to report that that was all I needed. That wake up call was all I needed to say, as well intentioned as people may be. As much as I value and respect the opinions of people who I've invested money in and time, and those of my business besties and the other people around me whom I trust, right here, I need to listen to myself first. And I need to filter the decisions I make through my own gut before I default it to someone else. If you find yourself thinking of the data, listening to other people's voices when they contradict your own, you've probably done it before. I want you to go back and take an inventory right now of the key decisions that you've made and ask yourself, was those decisions that you made completely your own? From your own volition, from your own decision-making process, from the thing that you really wanted to do? Or did you make those decisions because of someone else that you trusted? Because of someone else that you thought was more of an expert than you? Someone else that you thought had better information? If you have a list of those decisions, then I want you to think about the next decision that you have to make. And what choice will you make then? Will you make the choice to listen to yourself? Will you say, I've collected enough evidence to know that I can trust myself and I don't have to default it to someone else? Or will you find yourself doing the same thing? These videos of being unscripted and uncensored and unfiltered and unprepared feel like I'm walking around butt-ass naked. That's what it feels like. Yet, I'm here doing that because I'm in the belief that who I'm going to be at the end of these 30 days is someone that I'm not right now. And these decisions that I'm making, this decision to talk about self-trust versus what the data tells me I should be talking about personal brand and thought leadership and communication because that is what I do. That is what I'm known for. That is what people pay me to do. That is also what I love. But instead, I'm listening right now to the voice that's telling me, you need to talk about self trust. Because once I unlock that in myself, I truly believe an entire new door will open to me. This is the video game of where I get to the secret level. The secret level that when I punch in circle, square, triangle, triangle, circle, that gets me to the next place. I invite you to tell me below, what is the next decision that you can make where you rely on self trust versus the opinions or thoughts or ideas of other people? What is that decision that you've delayed making because right now you're at conflict with yourself and with someone else? Wondering, do I go left or do I go right? What is that decision you have to make right now? Let's talk about it in the comments. If you want to go back and watch day one, I'll be doing these videos for 30 days. It will be a whole series, so you can go back and watch each of the videos. In the meantime, I want you to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so that you will never miss a video. Until next time, trust yourself. Peace.